Hi, welcome to Avalara Next and the Cloud Cost Optimization session. My name is Lindbergh Matillano. I'm the Director of Cost Optimization here at Avalara. Just some quick background about myself. I have 20 years experience in finance and technology. Prior to Avalara, I was with Deloitte, Microsoft, and Tableau. I hold a graduate degree in information systems and certifications in AWS, Azure, and FinOps. I'm also the FinOps Foundation ambassador. So today we're going to talk about Avalara's FinOps approach, our journey, the toolbox we use, and share with you tips to unlock millions of dollars in cloud savings. So what is cost optimization? Well, at Avalara, cost optimization is an amalgamation of FinOps and software asset management. A central program manages Avalara's cloud costs and R&D software. So for those that aren't familiar with FinOps, FinOps is a cloud financial management discipline that enables organizations to maximize the business value of the cloud by allowing and fostering engineering, finance, technology, and business teams to collaborate and make data-driven spending decisions. So Avalara and FinOps, before we even talk about Avalara's successes on FinOps or cost optimization program, we want to ground really on why we've been very successful. And the reason for that is Avalara's values. Here at Avalara, we call those the OPA focus. And you can see here where, the 9 traits in which Avalara, what Avalara values. And then on top of that, from a FinOps perspective, we overlay the FinOps principles. And you can see that there are some overlaps between FinOps principles and Avalara's values, in terms of ownership, collaboration, simplicity. These values and the Avalara's values and the FinOps principles really work well together. Both these principles and values lay the foundation, and we're supported by our executive and management teams to focus on optimizing our costs. Each organization within Avalara actually has cost champions that focus on looking at opportunities, looking for opportunities, and realizing opportunities for savings, and realizing more business value. And they support the various business, product, and engineering teams. So how does Avalara unlock millions of dollars of cost savings? Well, there's 3 essential measures of success, right? One is we measure the total saves that we have in terms of total savings that the program has been able to accomplish or realize. And we compare that in terms of the overall total program contribution. So over the past 3 years or so, as well as year to date. So we have various data points in which we look at how much has this program saved and how much has the organization saved collectively by applying FinOps principles. The second measure of success we look at really is the change in our annualized run rate. So for those that aren't familiar with annualized run rate, you simply just take a month of spend and then multiply that by 12. And that gives you what the annual run rate to run your business on. And what we often do is we take that number, compare it across different periods. So we often compare it year over year, or the beginning of the year, and see what changes have been made. And we look at that number in terms of magnitude of the impact the program has had. And the last measure of success really is cloud costs as a % of revenue. That calculation is pretty straightforward. What we do is we take the total cloud costs So for example, take AWS and Snowflake costs, and then divided by the revenue supported by that cloud infrastructure. And then you get percent of cloud costs as a percent of revenue. And that really is a good measure in terms of efficiency. As that number drops, that means that you're using less cloud costs to support your growing revenue. So we often look at, what the overall decreases are. So those three measures of success are how Avalara really tracks how well we're doing. And we set up internal benchmarks to make sure that we're able to meet those, to track that success against it. And as a result, we ended up saving millions of dollars overall in terms of cloud costs. So let me talk about Avalara's FinOps journey. So we started our AWS migration in full force in around 2019. And the dotted gray line you see there really is, the typical cloud journey many organizations take when they're first migrating to the cloud. There's this steep ramp up of costs, and then kind of trails off with continued increase, but after this steep climb. So that's a typical pathway. Recognizing that we are potentially on this pathway of a steep climb in cloud costs, our leadership decided that in 2020, they would establish the cost optimization program. Once that was established, we implemented cost transparency for our cloud. So we implemented AWS cost and usage reporting, and we centralized a lot of the activities that were being performed by different teams, such as savings plan and RI purchases. So that became all centralized so that we can ensure that we're fully utilizing all of the savings plans and RIs that are being purchased. And then the third thing really is in 2020, as part of the program establishment, we set up vendor benchmarking across all of our cloud service providers and our software providers. So we were ensuring that we got some of the best rates. In 2021, the program established what we call our cost champions. I talked about that previously. It's really stakeholders across the organization that it's their remit to help identify and help realize cost saving opportunities across the organization. In addition, we created cost and usage databases for Snowflake and MongoDB because we were migrating from our legacy SQL Server over to Mongo and Snowflake, which we saw increased costs in. So we wanted to make sure that we're applying the same FinOps principles and just saving money there. In 2022 was really our first FinOps tooling purchase. We purchased an enterprise version of Cloud Custodian called Stacklet that allowed us to create policies to monitor our cloud usage and provide us our truly first cloud CMDB. And then in 2023, we continued saving, but we started to accelerate a lot of our savings initiatives. One of those initiatives was the migration from more expensive IOs or EBS storage volumes to GP3, which resulted in significant savings. So what did these changes do? What did these highlighted changes do to our cost curve? Well, with all of these changes, you can see that the steep incline that is traditional of many companies moving to the cloud was actually avoided. We were able to essentially flatten the curve and avoid the high cost of the cloud migration. And you can see here the difference between the dotted line and the orange line really is what you would consider savings. We avoided these costs, and we're in a position now where we're running, millions and millions of transactions on a regular basis, essentially with less cloud resources or less cost. Here's an example of some of the results of what the FinOps program has been able to do. What you see here is just one account, our EBS costs on a daily basis. And with collaboration with the teams, we are able to bring down the cost from this point, about this point, and then you can see over time, optimizations, the costs go down as optimizations are realized. Until right now, where we're at, we're at this point, kind of the lowest point. And you can see this difference here from the start to where we're at now is just a significant reduction. And that's just really just one account, made possible by the FinOps program and in collaboration with multiple teams across the organization. So a lot of this was made possible because of the visibility that our tooling has provided. And so we're just going to quickly go over the FinOps toolkit that Avalara uses. As a point of reference, Avalara spends less than 1% of our cloud budget on FinOps tooling. And that's actually pretty significant considering some tooling costs actually more than 1% of cloud costs. This was made possible because our philosophy really is to focus on tooling that meets our needs. And one of the first things that we realized is a lot of the native cloud management, the cloud service providers, a lot of their native tools actually are sufficient really for our initial needs to identify costs. So we use things like Cost Explorer. Our engineers use that because oftentimes when they come to Avalara, the first thing they know from a cost perspective is how to use Cost Explorer. So we didn't really want to take that away. We want to leverage those capabilities. So that's one of the first native tools that we used. Over time, we realized, hey, we need to do more analysis, more ad hoc analysis, more specific reporting. We needed to blend information from different data sources. So our engineering teams created cost and usage databases depending on the cloud. And a lot of this information is actually freely available by the software vendors. So for example, AWS has detailed instructions on how to get the cost and usage data out and into an Athena database. So we can do ad hoc analysis. And other clouds like Google Cloud, Mongo, Snowflake actually have all of that information available. So we created separate cost and usage databases that feed into or that are analyzed by our various BI tools. For Avalara and specifically, we use Tableau to analyze our cost and usage information. The second piece of our toolkit is what we call policy monitoring and our cloud asset database. We use a tool called Stacklet. It connects to AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure, and it simply allows us to create or implement policies to monitor our various clouds and those assets in those clouds. And then if there's a policy violation, tasks can be created automatically in Jira and assigned to our engineers, or people can be notified in Slack or in email. And being able to utilize the tools that our engineers use is a big win, right? They don't have to learn any new tooling. They're using things that they already know. For example, so Jira, they do a lot of their work in Jira. So being able to land the work the notifications in Jira is a big plus. So here's an example of what a customized Tableau cost and usage dashboard would look like. The data here is fictitious. It's just based on publicly available cost information. But it's just, we just wanted to illustrate, what types of information we can pull from cost and usage databases. So whether it be AWS or Google or Snowflake, we can create this information directly with the cost and usage databases that we have, and make it and tailor it to our needs. Here's another example. This one, once again, fictitious data. This one shows compute usage over time and rates. Once again, this information is based off of the cost and usage databases a few slides ago that we created. So yes, some of this augments, a lot of this augments the native tooling. This may not necessarily be easily accessible or available in the cloud native tools, which is why we create them in these specific dashboards, specifically to meet our needs. And it allows us to do more ad hoc analysis and understand what are the drivers. So as we close out, I just wanted to leave you guys with 4 tips on how you can unlock millions of dollars in cloud savings. So the first piece is really establish the tone of your cost optimization or FinOps program. You do this by ensuring that you got executive buy-in. You want the highest level of support from your executives that, yes, they want to optimize and realize the full value of the cloud. You want to place the FinOps program closest to the decision makers. So at Avalara, the FinOps program or cost optimization program sits within the CTO organization. And that's primarily because the people that make decisions on which instance types to use are engineers. So we want to enable and encourage our engineers to make the right decisions by being as close to them as possible and being part of that team. The third thing in terms of establishing the tone is set up a regular meeting cadence. At Avalara, we meet weekly with our various leadership team and review overall trends on our most strategic clouds and identify particular themes or focus areas that perhaps specific teams or should be aware about, and we would focus on there. And then identify champions. Once again, part of that tone is identifying champions within the various organizations to one is to help identify cost savings opportunities, but also help realize them. And then also share information that they've learned from other cost champions. The second tip I have is really gain visibility on your spending. You really can't fix what you can't see. And in order to do that, in order to impact the costs and optimize usage, you really need to see what the current usage is and the current cost is. So after you set the tone, it's really important for you to gain visibility in your spending. The third tip I have is once you identify opportunities, savings opportunities, you want to prioritize those opportunities. There are going to be a lot of opportunities to save. You want to prioritize it. And if you're starting off, really the first thing you should do is focus on the low-hanging fruit, the low effort, high return, high impact type of opportunities, because that would generate a significant amount of savings upfront in terms of your program. And you can also use that as a proof point to further invest in the program going forward. In terms of prioritizing opportunities, you also want to focus on the ROI of each opportunity, right? You want to make sure that the amount of effort to implement or to realize opportunity is there's a significant return there, and you just want to prioritize that. The third thing in terms of prioritizing opportunities, there may be times where you can actually group opportunities into themes and have the cost champions and the leadership teams focus on those themes. So for example, at Avalara, if we identify perhaps an opportunity in of savings by migrating from one instance type or EBS volume type to another, we would focus on that for for a particular quarter or 2 quarters, so we can rally the troops and the individuals and teams around that single goal. And we would often celebrate that theme throughout that quarter. And the fourth and final tip I have is really just kind of keep it simple, right? In terms of organizationally, you want to centralize your FinOps program. You also want to leverage a lot of the existing processes, tools, and skills your stakeholders already have. For example, if you need to realize opportunities or you identified opportunities, rather than create another tool to distribute out work to teams, perhaps use something like Jira, which many of the engineers already use to get them to do work and plan that work. So that way, there's very little change management that needs to be done. You're using tools that the teams that are actually impacting the costs are using. And then the last tip in terms of keeping it simple is really utilize what you have available first, right? There's a lot of native cloud FinOps tooling that's available with our various cloud service providers. If you focus on that piece, you look at it, there's probably a lot of opportunities there. And then when you're evaluating whether you want to buy a tool, look at really where the gaps are and identify the tool that would address those gaps specifically, rather than try to buy a tool that does everything. Oftentimes you'll find that you buy a tool that does everything, you really only use a little piece of it. So you end up just paying more than what you need for. All right, those are our 4 tips for unlocking savings and unlocking cloud savings. I hope you guys found this useful. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A section or chat, and we will follow up with you after the conference. Thank you very much.